Oh, there you go. I hope none of you have seizures. If you do, don't look at the screen. Sorry about that, but that very fast moving. The BJ you can trust. It's the Brazil Expat Journal, and I am back, guys. And we have so much good news for you. We have some changes here on the Brazil Expat Journal, and one of them is that I have a new co-host, and her name is Kira. Hello, Kira. Are you there?
I'm here.
Yes, guys. So that doesn't mean me and Pete didn't get in a fight or anything. In fact, he was here last weekend and we did a real nice podcast on the Stanley Kubrick movies. So me and Pete are going to focus more on these long form podcasts, which I really love doing with him, where we rank movies and stuff like that. It's my nerd side because unfortunately, he works a lot and he's a bit tired and his internet goes in and out and this and that and the third, as most of you know who have been following the show. So I just broke it down to him and he's like, no problem. But he'll pop in every once in a while. He said if he's not really tired or anything like that, because I love having Pete's perspective because he's just the crazy white boy from Canada. Like, who doesn't want the crazy white boy from Canada perspective? But also, I love having a female perspective. The best BJs that we've ever had are the ones where the women came in and took over, whether it was Renee, whether it was Kira when she came on, Rebecca, because it just adds more flavor, adds a different perspective than what me and Pete give you guys. So I asked Kira if would be willing to co-host with me. She said yes. And that means I gave her a little task to get on my ass because I really want to keep this more frequent than I do. And we are going to do it by one, making it actually a Brazil expat journal in the sense that we're not always going to have guests. Some days we're just going to come on, we're going to talk, we're going to tell you about what happened to us during the week, the difficulties sometimes, the joys of living in Brazil. So it really becomes a journal. And I can't always do that if I'm always searching for a guest to be on. So that's going to change a little bit. It will continue to be a call-in show. So if anybody wants to call in at the end, I'll give you a link where you can comment and you can say what you want to say. We're going to try to keep it on Mondays. We just had a little bit of problems this week. So that's why we're doing it on a Thursday. But Thursday is not the usual day for the BJ. For now, we'll test it out and see if Thursday works better for all of us. But I'd rather keep it on a Monday just to get it out of the way and then, have the rest of the week free. So that's the news, guys. That is the news. And I am going to get to Kira in just a second. Last thing that I do want to say is that I just did an interview for a Brazilian podcast. It's all in Portuguese. And I'll put a link to it at the bottom if you want to watch it. And I just talk about my life, about the difficulties of learning Portuguese, the difficulties of language learning, but also the joys of just not being afraid and just making mistakes and just going with it. Just like here with this podcast, which I've done a million times and I always screw it up, but I always learn too every time that I do. Anyway, that was a long-winded introduction. What's up, Miss Kira? Today we're talking traveling, right?
Yes, sir.
And you are a very, very, very active traveler. Like, just off the top of your head, how many places do you think you've been to in Brazil? Just in Brazil.
Just in Brazil, at least 12 or 13.
Yeah, I think there's 27 states in Brazil, and she's been to a bunch of them. Uh, and every time you travel, it's just, it's an eye opener, I imagine. Yeah.
Absolutely. I
What
love
would you say is like the biggest like shocker for you when you travel to different parts of Brazil? Like, what grabs your attention the most as far as the different places, the differences of the places, I should say?
That's a good question. What grabs my I would say how different every place is. Like I feel like when you travel within the states, like going from Wisconsin to Atlanta, like people can have similarities, things can be the same, but it doesn't. If you go to Recife, it's very different than Manaus. If you go to Manaus, it's very different than Rio. Rio is very different than Sao Paulo. Like it's literally like being in a different place.
I think that's so important for people to know because Brazil is mostly marketed as Rio de Janeiro. which is fine. I mean, it's a famous city, it's a beautiful city. But Brazil is so much more than that. Brazil is so much more than beaches. I mean, the country extends inward quite a bit, all the way over to all those other countries like Chile and Peru, Argentina. Brazil has a border with them. So there's a lot of inland area. There's deserts, there's mountains, there's canyons. Here, there's a little bit of everything. There's a famous Brazilian phrase, "A terra abençoada por Deus," a land blessed by God. And it really is. It's like so much stuff that you can see, and all the little cities and the way different people interact and everything, and yet still very Brazilian. It's a very amazing country. But guys, we're not going to talk about places to go. In fact, Kira was on this show before and she did talk about that. I'll link that to you'll probably see it up top or something, that episode where Kira came on. Today, I want to focus a little bit more on just how to travel because even in the first world nation, like America or Europe, a lot of countries in Europe are considered first world. Even then, people are a little afraid to travel on their own. They want to go with their husbands or with their best friends or blah, blah, blah. And it's scary to just get in a car and say, hey, I live in PA, but I'm just going to drive to Texas or something. I don't know. Even within the state. So I imagine it's even scarier if you think like going to a different country, you don't speak the language very well. How are you going to get around? So that's what we're going to talk about today, like solo traveling in Brazil and the joys that you can have with it. Did you, by the way, Kira, were you nervous the first time you traveled by yourself?
The first time I traveled by myself,
Here in Brazil, I should say.
I oh, here in Brazil, no,
No, why not?
because I've been traveling since I was 18.
Okay, so that helps if you already have a traveling background. So let's go back then, like when you traveled that first time by yourself at 18.
That's what I had to think about. So my first time when I traveled by myself, I was not nervous because I went to Barcelona, Spain, to go visit a friend that I already knew. So I think that helped. Um, the first time I traveled by myself was when I went to Japan, and I wasn't nervous. I was more excited than anything. I think like I've always just had this travel bug in me because my mom liked to travel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I always just have this thing like I can't let those fear and that anxiety get to me or I won't go anywhere. So no, I would say no. The nervousness doesn't get to me.
This is true, guys. And now, for those that have never traveled or are thinking about traveling, sometimes that's all it takes, like baby steps. So if you live in California, I don't know, take a bus or take a plane in Nevada by yourself once. Like it's a short trip, but you get your feet wet and you realize, hey, it's not that bad, And then maybe next time, if you're over on the West Coast, go to Mexico. It's right next door, or if you're on the East Coast, run up to Canada real quick and come back, do like a day trip. And you realize, hey, it's not that complex to travel unless it's like a country that's in a war, like in the middle of a war or something. But for the most part, people are very friendly. People are very helpful when you travel. Um, yeah, you can't go by the media reports of like what people are gonna be like. Almost every time that I talk to travelers, they only have good things to say about people willing to help them, even if they're like in like I don't know East Timbuktu. Somebody will be there to help you. All right.
Correct.
Um, so that's actually kind of interesting because I didn't even think about that when I was putting this little slideshow together. We're going to show you is just how to get yourself up to travel speed. Take those baby steps, and then you start going to these other countries, and then you realize, hey, it's not that complicated to just travel and explore and be safe. So the first thing, Kira, that I thought of that is really important is just check wherever you're traveling, not just Brazil, but check what's going on. In the U.S. we have the State Department. They have a consulate page where they do talk about different countries if there's stuff to worry about here. Brazil has a travel advisory since October of 2023. Because of what? I don't know. I didn't open that, but probably the same stuff as always. They always say Brazil is very dangerous. Let me see, Brazil travel advisory. So that's the first thing you should do. And also realize that there's a lot of people. If you're going to Brazil, you can see here on the map how many folks are in Brazil doing tourism. You know, Argentinians are number one at 1.8 million, and you meet a lot of Argentinians when you travel around Brazil, especially the Northeast. But United States is second. It's got here 668,000 Americans are traveling around Brazil as tourists. But then we have Chile, PRY, I'm not sure, is that Peru? Uruguay, France, Portugal, and then Germans love this country. So that's the first thing you should do is just figure out what you need to travel, even stuff like vaccines. I know sometimes Brazil requires you to have a yellow fever vaccine. Did you have to take one, Kira?
No.
Oh, you left out. But
Oh
sometimes
no.
you got to take one and check that out first. But once you're here in Brazil, you know, we have some folks that are like expats that live here and are thinking about traveling. And then we have people that are just down and they're like, hey, I just want to travel to a place. I think this is more for folks that are here, that are like living in Rio, living in Sao Paulo, living in Salvador, living in these big cities, which are easier to manage. And they just want to go, you know, for 3 days to this little town out in the middle of nowhere that they heard of that sounds amazing. How do you do that? How do you do that? Okay. So to travel, what do you use to travel here, Kira? Like what document do you usually use?
Only my passport.
And you and she says passport, guys, but you don't even have to have a passport. It just has to be a photo ID. Passport is usually the easiest one, but yeah, you can use your passport. They may ask you for CPF, especially if you're traveling by bus. They definitely ask for CPF. Guys, the CPF is the most annoying thing on planet Earth. Brazilians use it for everything. Like you go buy bread and they ask for CPF number. So it's a good idea to get one and set that all up. But you need photo ID and you get on anything. You don't need a visa, obviously, to travel inside of Brazil and even to the neighboring countries. I don't think you need a visa to travel to the neighboring countries. You you might, as an American, though, I forgot about that little detail. But let's focus inside Brazil, okay? And then what you can use to travel, guys. There's a lot of travel agencies here. CVC is probably the most famous one. They give you tour packages. So it's like 2,000 reais with hotel included. You get the airplane, the tickets, da 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 da. It all comes in a neat little package. Azul also does that. But also, there's a lot of good sites that you can go online to find cheap tickets, like Decolar, Expedia. Which is the one that you like to use?
Um, for traveling, I don't use any of these.
I know, that's why I asked. Which is the one
Oh,
that you usually
I
use?
use kayak.
Kayak. What's the one where you got your tickets to Salvador? That we got
Kayak.
the one. Oh, that was it. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, and guys, just make sure that the date is correct. Okay, on your flights
I
home.
love you so much. You got home, didn't you? Look,
I did. I got home.
we got home.
Yeah. So, guys, what happened is that I'm not very good. First, I'm not a good flyer at all. So I get a little bit nervous just even thinking about flying and then buying a ticket, all that stuff. Like I have a meltdown. So Kira was helping me find some cheap tickets to get back to Sao Paulo from Salvador. And man, oh man, we did find some cheap tickets. It was just for like a month after the day that I was gonna leave. But I only found that out after I showed up to the airport and I couldn't do my check-in. And then I saw that the tickets were like for a month later. I was like, fuck. So then I came back to Sao Paulo by bus. And I went to Salvador by bus too, by the way. And that's because that's Kira's fault too, by the way.
How is that my
Because
fault?
I'm messing with you. No,
Oh,
you know what
only
it was? No, you know what it was? Because I thought that Kira was gonna go up with me and not come like a few days after. So I got a
oh,
really good deal on plane tickets, like under 1,000 reais to there and back.
What
but
did
I
I
was
get?
messaging. I was
I was
messaging. I was like, I was waiting for you to confirm if you were gonna go on that day. But then by the time you confirmed, the tickets just went up 1,500, and then it was like 2,000, and it was like three. So I was like, what? So I took a bus up to Salvador. I wasn't intending on taking a bus back, but it's fun. We'll talk about buses. In fact, here are the companies on the right that you can take for buses. Cometa is very good. That's probably, yeah, it's number one. It's the top company. Guys, buses, have you gone on buses here for long travels, long trips?
the longest that I've done is just to Rio. So
That's the usual one. That's pretty common and it's pretty comfy. It's like 6 hours, you know, as long
yeah,
as you're not sitting next to like somebody annoying, which usually you're not.
yeah, I'm a
I mean,
flyer.
oh, yeah, I'm not much of a flyer, but it's comfy. Most people go to Rio by bus. It's a 6 hour trip. If you do that, I usually like to go like I take the last bus, so I arrive in the morning. So I'll go like midnight, 12:30, and I'll be in Rio by 6 a.m. or so. And it's really stress free. I went to Salvador on this Gontijo bus, which I thought was even nicer than Cometa. Like those seats lean back far as hell, man. I slept very well on that trip. I had a good time going up to Salvador on a bus. But you have all these other companies. Some of them are for shorter trips, like within the state. Some of them will take you really damn far, but really safe. So that's one thing that I want to talk about right away. The roads, if you are going by bus. And yes, Kira said she's a flyer. Obviously, flying is the easiest way to travel. But again, we're trying to open it up for different options. And depending on where you go, sometimes the bus is the only option because there are no airports near the city. So you may just have to jump on a bus. And for the most part, at least the roads I've been on, pretty safe, pretty well maintained. Like going up to Bahia from Sao Paulo, I thought that we'd hit these like dirt roads and stuff like that. Man, beautiful roads, beautiful countryside. It was a beautiful trip. So I got no complaints at all. It was what, 33 hours that I was on that bus, and it stops along the way. You just got to measure it out. Get yourself some nice podcasts. I like to stay up late so then I sleep, because the most boring part is like the first leg when it's like you have 24 hours on the bus, like from the morning until the night. So I prefer to sleep during the day. So I'll stay up till like 2, 3 in the morning, listening to some podcasts, sleep till lunchtime, take another nap, and then at dinner onward is when I wake up and just kind of have a better time on the trip. Because man, riding a bus during the day sucks. That does suck. At night, it's a little bit more fun. Anything? I don't think we need to add anything more about buses, right?
No, I think you got it all.
Pretty safe, pretty safe. So again, look for those tickets using a lot of these sites. You can go through the travel agencies, but many options. Another option for traveling, and again, this is great if you're doing a short trip. Like I really like to go to this city here in Sao Paulo called Campinas. It's about an hour from Sao Paulo, and I usually take Busser or BlaBlaCar. Mostly BlaBlaCar though. And I'm surprised how many people don't know what BlaBlaCar is. Do you use BlaBlaCar, Kira?
No, it confuses me.
Well, how does it confuse you?
I think that like when it tells me, I don't know. I don't use it. I'm an Uber or a bus girl, or I'll just rent a car.
Yeah, I used it once when I went to a city called Bertioga, which is a beach city, about an hour and a half to 2 hours from Sao Paulo, and I really enjoyed it. The only thing with BlaBlaCar is this. Basically the service is the idea of the service is this: somebody will be driving to a destination, that's further away, so it's not like Uber distance, about an hour or two away, and you're basically paying for their gas money. So they want to fill that car up with at least three people. Otherwise, they usually won't take the trip. So, like our trip down to Bertioga, we had one guy in the front, another guy in the back, me and my friend. So four people in the car, and the driver. It was so much fun. The driver was really funny. His name is Fred. If anybody wants to follow me on Instagram at Phil in Brazil, I can pass you his contact. Really great guy. Fred Dallas was his name. And I fell in love with the service. With after that trip, it was like 12 reais to go to the beach. Usually the bus is like 40, so it's way cheaper. And and then I started taking it a lot on the way back from Campinas. Going to Campinas, I usually take the bus because it's a little faster, and
Yeah.
then I'll take the blah blah back.
I remember why I don't like it now. I
Why?
use car when I would like go to Santos or Playa Grande, and I hate it because they never use AC.
They never use what?
They don't turn on the air conditioning in the car.
Who does that? We always had air conditioning.
The guys that I've used, they didn't. They would try to like save money and like they would turn it on like when maybe when we were in standstill traffic or getting
Oh
closer.
God, when
That
was
was like
this?
the
I,
few times that I've went to Santos, and then after that, I just learned how to rent a car, and that's why I don't
what?
like it.
Oh, we'll talk about renting a car in a second. But let me ask you, because there was a time about 5 years ago or so, or let's just say the economy in Brazil wasn't doing very well. Even Ubers were hard to get. In fact, Uber fired like 10,000 people. Like they fired a really big number of people here in Brazil because guys were like, they weren't taking rides, or they would like wait for the person to cancel. Like they would accept a ride and then they would wait and see if you get frustrated enough to cancel, so then they would make the money back. Like there was a whole lot of things like that going. But it ended up, it was because it was just really expensive here to just drive and go anywhere. So even the Uber drivers were like, just to conserve gas, they were doing all this little shit like that. It's gotten better now. It's not as good as it was when Uber first came here, but it's a little bit better. Like you can get an Uber now. So maybe that was it. I don't know. I didn't have that issue with BlaBlaCar. I've never had that issue. I've used BlaBla at least 4 or 5 times. So maybe it was that they were just trying to save money because air conditioner will kill your gas tank really quickly. So maybe that was what it was. But the only issue I think for me with BlaBla is that one, it's like the driver needs to have at least three people in the car, otherwise it's not worth it for them. So sometimes you have to wait till the last minute. That's why I only really take blah blah when I'm coming back from Campinas, because I got a little bit more time to like wait around. um, and if they just don't accept at the last minute, I'll just take a bus. But when I'm going there, usually it's like early in the morning and I gotta just go. I don't have time to like debate whether the guy is going to pick me up or not. And sometimes you have to go to a spot. Like when we went to Bertioga, the guy was leaving out of Osasco. So we took the train down to Osasco, which is about 20 minutes from my house, got into the car at the terminal, and then he went the rest of his route. So, it's not like a perfect, it's not like Uber where they come to your door and like everything's neat and pretty, but it's really well maintained, safe, and you do meet some cool people sometimes when you're driving on your ride using BlaBlaCar. And of course, the classics we just talked about: Uber, taxis, 99. All three exist here. Prices are back down to like normal level, but um, yeah, it's sometimes depending on where you are, there are no Ubers. So you just got to keep that in mind. I found that out the hard way, that not every place has Uber, or if they have one, I recommend getting the guy's number. Like when I was in this little town called Ilha Cumprida, there was like one Uber for this whole town. The guy at the Pousada, which is like an inn that I was in, gave me his number, and then I just stuck with him. And that's just how it went. So you just gotta realize that. Uber's here though, no issues with Ubers. You're an Uber girl, right?
Definitely.
Mm,
Definitely. I would say
yeah,
sometimes depending on where you are going, it's hard. Like, me, I live in Bras, so it's like really hard sometimes, especially at night, to get a taxi to go to Bras or Uber to go to Bras.
yeah, because it's a dangerous area.
It's not dangerous. You've been to my neighborhood.
He's out in the ghetto, guys. So you can hear the motorcycles in the background. She's in a
Oh
dangerous
Jesus!
area. She's in a dangerous area.
I'm
Anyway,
not dangerous.
anyway, I miss the days when Uber first came to Brazil and the drivers used to offer you water and candy and like there was nice man. It was amazing. Everything that's new starts out so nice, and then it just the decadence just comes in, because it was like so like even like if the Uber driver fucked up, Uber would reimburse you like the next day. I'm fighting with Uber now over a charge that they gave me that was like totally out of sync with what I'm used to. And then, folks, this is more Kira level, which is if you're not so prepared to travel on your own, you can hire these companies. Now, if you hire a company like this, I recommend, connecting with other expats and get recommendations from them because, yes, there are a lot of scams. So you don't want to be in a scammy place or with scammy people. But a lot of them are legitimate companies and you have a great time. It's safe. They have insurance. Here, there's one to Campo de Jordão, which is when people like that's Brazil. Like Kira was saying, the differences. You look at Rio de Janeiro, and then look, it's Haiti. In Brazil, in Campo de Jordão is a city about I don't know 3 to 4 hours north of São Paulo. So that's a good price. 200. Oh no, it's 10 times 290 reais, so about 2,000 reais for this trip. But you get to stay there for 5 days. It's a flight there. Okay, you have all the stuff, check in, city tour. So it's a full tour, including this little chubby guy as your tour guide. And here, amizades eternizadas em lugares inesquecíveis. And then you can hang out with these folks here if you want. I'm not a big fan of this. You're more into this. Can you talk a little bit more about how this works? Because I can't deal with all
Yeah.
these.
So I would say the way I've learned a lot about these little companies is that I'll Google or I'll search something on my Instagram. So for instance, Campos de Giordino, and then one, you know how Instagram kind of works. It pays attention to your algorithm and things of that nature. So then in a sense, I get a lot of tours that will pop up as like advertisement. The way that I can tell that they're real is based off the amount of followers, the comments, and then nice thing to get in contact with these places is that they have like a WhatsApp.
Mm.
Um, I love doing them. I think that they are a great little cheap getaway to see another part of Sao Paulo or another part of Brazil, I should say. So, for instance, you always meet them at a metro. And you'll meet them like kind of the night before. So, starting at 10, 11 o'clock on a Friday night. And then that way you arrive at the next place in the morning. And then you're there with a group of people and you can socialize and things of that nature. Everything is basically paid for. They kind of give you an outline of the itinerary and what else you may need to pay for. And you have a guaranteed ride back. And you come back the same night, which will be Saturday, and you get back pretty late. Or you'll get back Sunday morning pretty early. I have been to quite a few of them. I love them. Whether it's
Yeah, I see. You're always. Let me ask you, like the first one that you took, was it like a test the waters one? Like, was it a short trip or, before you took
oh,
a long one?
okay, hold on. I've been here for 2 years. You gotta give me a chance. Where did I go for my first one? I wanna say, give me a moment. I'm looking at my Instagram. Um, I wanna say my first one was probably hiking. Um, my nope, my first one was not hiking. My
I
first one
was
was
gonna
water.
say, Kira hiking, like on what planet?
I do hike sometimes. It's just once or twice a year. My
Uh,
first one, and help me because I'm gonna mispronounce it. Juquibita, JuquitibA.
oh my God! Write it in the comments there. Ju. See what the
J.
comment.
How do you write in the comment? Uh,
There should be a little on the right side there. You can say hi. In fact, let me say hi to some folks that are commenting now because I could not understand what place. Oh, you put it in the private chat. Okay.
yeah. So I went to this
Shuki Chiba. Shuki Chiba. Guys, I'm going to put Shuki Chiba
Chiba,
here.
yes. And so I went there, and it was like water rafting and
Nice.
just like a whole bunch of other stuff. And I always wanted to try water rafting, was like on my bucket list, so that's why I chose it.
Mhm.
And that tour was absolutely amazing. I even lucked out because two of the tour guides spoke English, which is not common, and that's also back when my Portuguese was basically zero. I mean, I'm on level like 3 now. I'm not gonna give myself that much credit.
You're
Um,
doing no. Give yourself a lot of credit. Your Portuguese is really good. I've been watching your videos,
gonna make me
so you're
cry.
doing really well.
This
You're
is
doing
love.
really well. But listen, guys, I'm gonna give a little promo here. In fact, because next week I'm trying to get these guys that I did the podcast with to be on the channel. They were so cool, and one of the things we talked about was that is just like be fearless with your language. Like don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you learn. You learn on the go. Because well, spoilers, but they did ask this question at the end about, oh, you know, what should people do that want to learn English? And I was just like, learn it. But then I got, deeper than that. Is that I said, but at the same time, a lot of people put pressure on themselves to like learn a language to travel. And I don't know if it's that necessary. Like you got to know the basics and then just kind of learn on the go and just meet people, use Google Translate, and you learn just from experiencing stuff. It's so much more fun than putting all this pressure on yourself of like, I need to speak perfect Portuguese. Kira's Portuguese is broken. I'm just being honest. It's
I was
broken,
very
but
broken.
people understand you. You
Yes.
get around, and because you're not afraid to use it, you're not afraid to like look silly and make errors. Your Portuguese has improved a lot since I met you.
Thank
But
you.
if you just like afraid to talk because oh my god, I'm gonna look stupid, I'm gonna conjugate this verb wrong. Well, guess what? You're gonna continue looking stupid and conjugating that verb wrong forever because you're never gonna progress. So
Forever.
that's my message. Forever, ever.
Sorry.
Um, Look at this. Let me say hi to some folks that came in right now. So Jay was in here, Mr. Jay. I haven't. Is that Jay that used to be on the podcast with Renee? I wonder if it's Mr. Jay. Very cool guy. I really love Jay. Caroline, that I did a wonderful interview with some time back. She's up in Mexico, I believe. Love her. Travelmatic, who he's the man. He's been on the show. Uh, re- Great travel, great channel, guys. Check out Travelmatic's channel and check out Expat Caroline channel. She talks to a lot of good expats all over the world. And Jojo says, I'm planning to apply for my residency in Brazil as soon as possible. Do you have any advice for me or info about that? Well, I'm going to throw that over to Kira, Joe, because I was born in Brazil. I left when I was very young. So when I came back, I didn't have to go through all the residency process. So that's kind of like a blind spot for me as far as the process because I just had to come to Brazil and just let them know that I'm back. It was a pain in the ass too because I had to get a bunch of documents. I had to re-enlist in the military, which was bizarre. I had to do all that process, but I've never had to go through like the visa process and getting a Brazilian passport and all that. So, Kira, I don't know if you've done residency, but is there any light you can shed as far as on the way up to residency?
Yeah. 100% get a lawyer.
That's for everything. That's for everything. Yes,
Yeah,
get a look.
just get a lawyer. I would say for me, the hard part was my lawyer is actually in Canada. She is Brazilian, but she was in Canada, so I always had to go to police federal and do things on my own and like call her. So my only opinion, if you are stateside, I don't know where you're from, do all of that while you are in America, so you are with people who speak English and you know like what's happening and can understand it better. I do not have a good relationship with police federal.
Who does? Who
So
does? Oh my
yeah, my only advice will get a lawyer and do it in the states if that helps.
Guys, Polícia Federal, there you go. They have a portal here, Portal da Polícia Federal. They talk about migration, blah, blah, blah. So you want to go on the site, but if you want to hear people cry, if you want to see people cry, you'll hear them too, because we will cry loudly, is dealing with the federal police. That's the people that take care of there's the building right there in Lapa. That's the people that take care of immigration, and it's disorganized.
I don't know if
It's
you know, but I don't see your screen. I don't think you're sharing anything now.
oh, did I not share it? I'm sorry. I meant to do that.
There you
There you
go.
go. So there's the police federal right there. And so the he's asking how much it was, more or less ballpark figure. the whole
For
process?
the attorney or so also my case, I overstayed, so you always have to pay a fee of overstaying.
Hmm.
So for my process with my attorney, it was a little less than
That's
$2,000.
reais or dollars? Okay, dollars.
Dollars. So
Yeah.
yeah, I never.
Guys,
Yeah.
listen, you're probably some of the listeners are like $2,000. Listen, it's a lot, maybe for some folks, but it's worth it because you have way less headaches and you end up spending more if you try to do it on your own. Trust me.
Oh,
Uh,
and also my lawyer was very cool. She also let me pay in payments.
there
I
you
my
go.
lawyer worked with me, so if that also helps as well.
Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, it's so important. But yeah, Polícia Federal is like the bane of living in Brazil. I remember when I tried to get my Brazilian passport, I had to go back to this building 3 times. And mostly, guys, because when you go on the site, it says, what you need to bring. But then when you show up there, there's always one thing that's not on the site. And they're like, oh, you have to bring a notarized copy of this. You're like, fuck. So I went the first time. I had to go back to get this other document that I didn't know I needed to bring. Then I went a second time, and I didn't know it was like Public Servants Day here. So everything was closed. It's a holiday for public servants. So then, third time was the charm. I went up there, and I was able to get it done, but it's a pain in the butt. And even your most hardcore expats that know every little thing, every in and out about Brazil, and they're just living the life down here, it's like, whew, they'll cry when they think about Polícia Federal. He's asking if you can type her information. Does she have a website or something that you can share?
No, but I can just. How do I do that? Hold on, give me a second. Let me see.
Uh,
Did.
See if you
But
can find her info. If not, guys, check out the comments section after the live is done, either tomorrow or the next day, and I'll see if I can put it in the comments section if we can't find it now. But yeah, get a lawyer. Get a lawyer for anything that is going to cost you more than, I don't know, 2,000 reais here or 5,000 reais, which comes out to about $1,000. Anything that's going to cost you more than that, you want to get a lawyer in Brazil because it's a shifty country. They don't keep good records. I've told this story a few times before. Yeah, I don't want to get too much into properties right now because that's a whole other topic. By the way, guys, I'm finished a book about my time in Brazil. I'm just going through final edits and I have a whole chapter about buying property. And I'll tell a quick story because I don't want to go too deep into that. It's a separate topic, but just so you get an idea. When I came to Brazil, I stayed with my friend Kimmy, and she was living in two houses, not because Kimmy's a millionaire, but because she bought a second house, her and her husband, and the bank had certain specifications for this house, the specs that were different than the owner's specs for the house. And it took them about 4 to 6 months, and they were paying for two houses during all this. No help from the government. They were paying for two houses until the bank documentation matched the owner's documentation. So that's just like like my first like experience in Brazil. Like I'm off the plane and I'm not dealing with it, but I'm seeing them deal with this. And I know it happened again with another friend of mine from Ireland where she was trying to sell her house and it was the same issue. The owner's specifications for the house were different than what the city government specifications for the house were. So she ended up going by herself to Ireland. She left her husband behind because the process was so long and they were bleeding money. She went up back to Ireland, was able to help him out cash wise. It took him about a year to get all of that settled. And then he eventually joined her in Ireland. So, guys, properties, definitely get a lawyer. Maybe we'll do a podcast just about buying property. And maybe I'll have Vlad on because Vlad just bought some property, or Dave, because Dave is out there looking for property and he almost got screwed up. These are friends of ours because that's another thing that can happen. Sometimes you buy a property without actually going to the physical location, and then when you show up to the physical location, where's the house? It's just not there. You thought it was a house, but maybe the way it was written, it was like a plot of land to have a beautiful house. And then you're like, what? And meanwhile, you just gave the guy a 50,000 reais down payment, and that's not a lot of money. Okay, so please, 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 please be careful if you're doing any sort of business here in Brazil. It's tricky. That's unfortunate side of Brazil. It's an unfortunate side of Brazil. Anyway, but Joe, keep the questions coming. We love it. By the way, guys, we love the interaction. I'm always trying to keep this as a call-in show. I know usually you guys come in a little bit later towards the second half. When Kira's tired, she's like, "Okay, we're almost done," and it's like, "Why are they asking questions?" But we won't keep. I promise, Kira, I won't keep you up too late.
I know it's 10:09. It's 10:09.
It's 10:09. Yes. All right. How's that work? May someone buy lands to buy a building for rent? Yeah, you can buy land to do whatever you want. I mean, you just got to check the zoning laws, see if you can build on that land. But a lot of people buy land. This is actually what our friend Dave was going to do. So maybe I'll get Dave to come on. He's going to be a great guest to have on here and talk about that. So subscribe to the channel, Joe. Click that little bell so you get notifications, and we will be on. Probably on Mondays, mostly on Mondays, but if not, you know, before the end of the week. We're going to try to really work hard to keep this as a weekly thing and make it grow, get up to 1,000 subscribers, and we get some more exciting things going on the channel. But I do want to get back to this, folks, which is what when you do travel, where to stay, where to stay. Airbnb exists in Brazil. It's probably the easiest thing to do. In fact, if you're coming to Brazil for a longer stay, I recommend it because renting here is a little bit complex sometimes too. Usually they ask for a 3-month deposit, which sometimes you get back, sometimes you don't get back. There's another thing where there's a fiador, like you get a cosigner. Forget about that. It's really difficult to get a cosigner, even for Brazilians. And there's another option, which is called Porto Seguro, which is like this insurance, and they'll pay that deposit. But then again, you don't always see that money come back to you. In most contracts for apartments or houses are a year long. It's going to be really difficult for you to find a contract that's shorter than a year. So that's why Airbnb becomes a good option, because you can stay there for a week, for a month. And if you got Gab, the power of Gab, guys, you got to know how to talk if you're in Brazil. And I'm not talking about speaking Portuguese. Just be communicable, smile, and Brazilians will work with you. Like I had to learn how to be more social in Brazil, and I got so much good stuff from that because I'm a very introverted person. And that's what I did. That's how I got the house that I'm in now, because I went through a real estate agent, and I don't have a co-signer. I did not want to do that Porto Seguro shit, which is usually the only 2 ways that you can rent from a real estate agent. And I just talked my way into it. I showed them pay stubs, smiled a lot, showed that I'm not like I'm a good payer, blah, blah, blah. And then they just let me do a 2-month deposit. I've been in this house since like 2012, I think, 13. And I got tired of going direct through the property owner. I did not recommend that, because that's when it's kind of like slumlordish, and they don't always follow the exact rules, as far as, raising the rent, because you got to follow this percentage thing and blah, blah, blah. So you get in a little bit of trouble if you go direct through the property owner. I recommend going through a real estate agent, but you got to be able to talk your way into that. The other option then, going back, I'm getting off topic a little bit, is Airbnb. So I have a friend, Aymara, in fact, is a good friend of ours who's done this. She's stayed at the Airbnb. She just talked to the lady. She really liked the place and said, "Hey, can I just do a little mini contract with you for like 4 months? Because that's how long I'm going to be here." A lot of them, of course, they're going to say yes, and they'll give you a discounted price because it's a guaranteed cash flow for them for 4 months. Who's going to say no to that? Okay. Thank you, Joe. Joe said he already subscribed. So definitely check out Airbnb. Hotels are everywhere. I put EBs up there, guys, only because it's a hotel chain that you find almost everywhere in Brazil. It's like a discount hotel, but it's a nice discount hotel. It's not like Motel 6 or something in the US, like these really crappy little hotels. It's actually a really nice hotel for like a nice reasonable price, and you find them everywhere. But hotels, you can go from Copacabana Palace and pay 3,000 a night to EB's where you're gonna pay like 150 a night. You know, and they even have EB's budget. For the extra. I think it's that little blue thing on the side there, the EB's budget. And then here on the right, you see hostels. There's a lot of hostels. Have you stayed at a hostel before, Kira, or no?
Of course, a lot of times, all the time.
Oh yeah, you were at a hostel in Salvador. How was your hostel experience? Because I hated it. I couldn't wait to get.
I love hostels. I never have a problem with them. I've been staying in hostels since I was 18 traveling. It's nice because they have discounted activities. I like it because you get to meet people. I Yeah, I've never had a problem. And normally people stay at hostels who are like extroverted. So I normally get a room to myself because people want to stay outside. And so I'm paying to have a room to myself for a cheaper price.
See, that's what I was gonna say. Because you're more of a quiet type, and you like to stay in hostels. Like I am too. I'm extremely introverted, and that's why I hate staying at hostels. I was lucky when I was in Salvador, because I think I had somebody in my room like twice. Like I think the longest was like 2 days, and for the most part, I had the room to myself. But I was out. I was not in that hostel. Like I was out from like 6 p.m. until like 4 a.m. the next day, most days, because I don't want to have to be forced to talk to somebody. It's just, ugh, I don't like it. I did not like the experience at all. So what I prefer is this posadas. A posada is an inn. Okay, and actually, these are some pictures from a city that I went to down here in São Paulo called Ilha Cumprida, which I keep saying I'm going to retire in this city, and it's probably going to happen because I fell in love with it. And they have a lot of posadas, and a posada is just an inn. And I like it because it does have like that hostel feel to it, where they'll have, like you can see here on the bottom left, there's a general area where everybody can get together, have like a barbecue, swim, but you have your private rooms. I need my private room. Doors locked, leave me the fuck alone. So I'm into the posadas a lot when traveling. So now we're going to get to, because we're going to go soon, but I want to get into some other topics with you, Kira. And basically this tips, advice, especially as a solo woman traveler, for safety, what are some tips that you can give to people that want to travel alone in Brazil?
Um, Safe tips for women, especially: do not let anybody sit here and tell you it's dangerous. Don't do it, because that is going to be the number one thing that stops you. If you're interested, go. Go because you want to go. And there are other women out there who are solo travelers just like you. I would say for safety, please use your street sense. That is very, very big and very, very helpful. When I say street sense, don't try to seem like a foreigner. Don't be out with your phone. Don't draw attention to yourself, especially unnecessary attention. Don't give men any idea that you are alone or that you're wanting to talk to them. If you have a question or something, I will go ask a woman, not a man. Do not hang out at night alone. If you're going to a party, like watch your drink. Do not get too drunk. Take a Uber home. Always be aware of your surroundings. Those things. But the world is so big. Brazil is so beautiful. I think it's a waste that if you have the opportunity to go, that you don't take advantage of it because other people are telling you it's dangerous. Um,
And
for
every
me,
just let me. I'm
oh
just
yeah.
gonna cut you off for 1 second because everything that you said, it all depends. One of my favorite phrases ever is when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So if you're looking or listening in this case to everything Kira said, and you have a vision of the world of danger, of everybody's after me, everything she said would scare the shit out of you. Watch your drink. Don't talk to men. Don't do this. But if you look at it just on the sense of like it's common sense. You're like in a strange town. You're not just gonna walk up to anybody and be like, "Hey, do you know where blah 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 is?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, I'll give you a ride." Like, are you stupid? I don't care if you're a man,
No, that is
or
not common sense. I had to learn that the hard way. Those safety tips are not common sense.
All right, then I take it back. But
Yeah, like I literally had a young lady that I met. I met her in Florianopolis, and I held a few things for her here at my apartment complex. And she was going to Guatemala next or something like that. And she was like, "Oh, I'm just trying to save money. I don't want to get a hostel right now because I have to like leave in 6 hours." And we were in my laundry room, and she was talking about it. And this guy walked up like, "Oh, yeah, I speak English. Where are you from? Blah blah blah." And he heard over her. He's like, "Oh, well, you could stay in my apartment." And she's like, "Oh, do you have like a couch or something?" And I'm just looking at her like, "Girl." And she's like, "Well, no." He's like, "But me and my friend, we have a bed. It's enough space." And she's like, "Okay,
me and my
yeah,
friend.
yes." And I'm like, "You're about to say yes to staying in a room with two men that do not have a couch, that you do not know, that you just met 2 seconds ago. Where is the common sense? Common,
Maybe
it's
the, well, we don't know this woman. Maybe the common sense is she's like, I'm gonna get laid tonight. Woo.
no, that from what I've talked to her about and who she seems that that's and they definitely were not even her type. And it's
Oh
just
boy.
like also if you were that broke where you can afford a $12 hostel for a few hours, you should not be traveling.
There you go.
Like you are putting your safety at risk versus spending
Yeah.
$12 for just a cup or $20. I know it's not that expensive for a night. Like that's not okay. So long story short,
Twenty
I paid
dollars. That's like more than 100 reais. You can stay at a fucking hotel for that. You know,
exactly.
private
So long
room.
story short, I paid for her Uber. I paid for her hostel. I was like, absolutely not, because the introvert that I am, you cannot come in my room.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, it's not. It's common sense isn't common, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that is true. Common sense is not common. That is true. But anyway, I just wanted to like go back because as you were talking, I was like, well, some people, we just said it's not dangerous, and you're like, well, don't do this, don't do this. But it's like that's just generally what you'd want to do if you go to any foreign city anywhere in the world is just be a little smart. Like you don't know these people, but once you just get that out of the way, you'll meet some really marvelous people. But go ahead, continue because I liked what you were saying.
And also I don't want to forget, I tried to post the number of the person, the attorney that I have. Is it okay for me to just say her number out loud? Because it says the comment has failed to post and fill in Brazil. Can I just say her?
Filter. Wait up. Yeah, yeah. Say her number. I'll write it down as you say it.
So
What's
her
her
number
name?
is six. Oh, I'm gonna pronounce it wrong. I just call her Miss. Her first name is Lais. Last
Lais. Liza.
Liza. Last name is
Gon.
Goncal.
P as in Paul.
C as in cat.
Oh,
Alves.
oh, Gonçalves. Okay. So
And then her,
Liza Gonçalves. What's her
her
number?
phone number is 647 339
647 339.
5020. And now that I just gave you that number, let me make sure like it doesn't have a Canadian
Well,
area.
probably gotta put the Canadian country code.
Oh, nope, it's just the plus one in the front. I guess
Oh,
it's
that's
American.
US. Okay. Oh, yeah, it seemed like an American number. Okay, so 1 6 7 All right, there you go. And
Yeah.
somebody asked if you have a YouTube channel. I don't think she does, but you do
No,
have a
did have a
Instagram.
YouTube channel back in the day, but no, I do not. I just have Instagram. So you're more than welcome to just follow me on Instagram.
Guys, follow her on Instagram because I love her posts. She just had these, she does sometimes these little stories that I like, but I'm still trying to learn. Like Kira is like my
Your
Instagram
tech
helper. Yeah, yeah. Like it took. Remember, like when you try to teach me how to do the
boomer. I
jamboree?
don't want to talk
No,
about
the
that.
boomerang. I called it the
But yeah,
jamboree.
how you
That's
stress me
how
out.
I'm like, because I'm doing it like with my hand, just like back, forth, back, forth. It's like, no. Anyway, yeah. And she taught me how to put music on my post because that was like freaking me out for the longest. Like, how do people put songs on their posts and I can't do it? Although I did find out that it depends on how many followers you have because I have this other Instagram where I don't use it that much. It's got like 400 followers and I can't post as much music on it. Like it doesn't open up to like pop songs. Like there's these little like free whatever, like royalty free
You
music.
can search the songs. You don't have to use the ones that they recommend you. I have 400 followers, and that's how I get my music. The search bar,
Where do
just
you do
search
it? I do,
Just
but
search.
it doesn't. But the songs don't show up on the other Instagram when I search, and it does on my regular one. And so, like, it's weird. I don't know.
Hmm,
I'm just happy the one that I use most, I kind of got it going. Kind of got
got
it
it.
going on. So, guys, follow me also at Phil in Brazil. And for those of you that are like, oh, you take so long to come on YouTube. Well, on Instagram, I'm like active damn near every day, either with a story or something about Brazil or a whole lot of music. I love music, so you're going to hear a lot of music on my Instagram, whether from me or other artists that I'm into, but also just traveling around. It used to be Phil Ray Music, but then I just changed the name to Phil in Brazil because I want to open it up a little bit more and just share a little bit of my life down here. But in fact, I'm about to post something. I was editing it. I found a place in Tatuapé that is like a baseball restaurant. It's so cool. So I'm gonna go down there to watch the
What's the
Phils.
name of it?
I forgot the name. It's on the video. We were heading somewhere else, and on the way, I saw it, and I was like, "Oh my god, I need to record this real quick." But we were like in a rush, so I didn't really catch the name. But it's close to the metro station there. But it's so cute. I was like, "What?" There's a lot of Japanese people in São Paulo, and it's mostly run by them. Japanese folks love baseball. Anyway, but that's sound advice. And I think for a man, it's more or less the same, guys. It's just be smart. We've had a few cases just this month. I think it was two that were posted in some expat groups where foreigners came down here. They went, met some prostitutes in Rio. They took them home and they got jacked. In fact, one of them died. They spiked his drink with something. So, men, then for men, I think it's the opposite. Women are more wary of the men when they travel, like don't talk to them. And men are like the opposite. It's like, dudes, do not talk to every woman. Every woman does not have your best intentions in mind. She's scoping you out before you scope her out. She's already like, oh, gringo, that's cash. That's money in the bank. So trust me, you got eyes on you. A lot of people think they don't have eyes on them, but you definitely have eyes on you. And as far as safety, yeah, for me it's the same. I've never been anywhere in my travels where I felt unsafe or like, well, I lie because I was in this one place in Rio that freaked me the hell out. Other than that, it's pretty safe, especially if you stick to the tourist area. And then as you get more adventurous, start going further and further and further. I always say this too: don't come to Brazil and take your first trip to, like, well, unless you're really like a seasoned traveler, then whatever. But if you're not used to it, don't go to like this little city like 2 hours from civilization because you heard that there's like a cool hippie festival there and blah blah blah. You might not want to do that. That might be like after your third trip, your fourth trip, and you start feeling a little bit more confident, knowing how to manage people. Because one thing that is so true about Brazilians is they're very social. And so you can get tripped up with that because some people are social because they're really nice people, and some people are social because they want to get one over on you. And it's really difficult to tell the two apart. Really difficult. And it took me a while. I got screwed over. I've been robbed inside my own house because of this, of thinking people were being social and really they were just being nice so that they can get one over on you. So do be careful with that as you travel. Um, I think that's about it. Any last considerations? Because we're hitting the hour mark, and usually that's how long we stay on for. Any
Nope.
final considerations, Miss Kira?
No.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody that came on. I definitely want to thank Joe for interacting and everybody that will be listening later. If you got any questions, drop them in the comments. We'll try to get back to you. Follow Kira at Jack underline Jolly right there. It's on the screen. That is her Instagram page. You can follow me on Instagram at Phil underline in Brazil. Pretty easy to remember. But also follow this page and let's get to 1,000 subscribers, guys. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers, and we can bring you more content and have a lot more fun. And share this also because you know how it is online. YouTube doesn't always share stuff. You know how the whole deal is. So if you can share this, it really helps us down here. And that is all. I do have some outro music, and it's gonna say hosted by Phil and Pete, but it is what it is. And I do want to thank everyone that listened tonight to the Brazil Expat Journal after a little bit of time away. Next week, hopefully, we'll be having an interview with these two wonderful English teachers, and they're funny. And I just want to talk about their whole, differences in culture. We're going to talk about, when you come to Brazil, what are some differences in culture that might get you tripped up. So that's going to be the topic for next week. And that's all, folks. It was great listening or being with you. Until next time, bye bye.